8 games in the season last year, Russell Wilson was cooking some swag. He was on track for over 5,000 yards and 56 touchdowns, which would have set the record for TDs in a single season and would have placed him top 10 in passing yards in a single season. The second half of the season, Russell Wilson was cooking some garbage on the fire. The second half of the season, he passed for 209 yards per game on average and under 1.5 touchdowns per game. So how did we get here? Well, both Russell Wilson and the Seahawks have their own story. When Russell Wilson was a guest on Dan Patrick's radio show, Patrick was dying to start some shit with the Seahawks. He first asked Wilson, quote, how much input should the quarterback have? After some clarification, Wilson would say, I think that ultimately for me personally, that I want to be involved. He then compared the situations of how Tom Brady brought Gronk and Antonio Brown to Tampa, and how LeBron becomes acting GM of every team he goes to. Patrick would ask, have you been involved? Wilson would say, not as much. I think that dialogue should happen more often in my opinion. Patrick would say, you're going to be the most sacked QB in the history of the league? That's something that needs to be fixed, Wilson says. And Wilson explained that one of the reasons Tampa Bay won the 2020 Super Bowl was because Tom Brady didn't get touched thanks to his O-line. Patrick then asked if the Seahawks have gotten calls for a trade, which Wilson said, I definitely believe they've gotten calls. A CBS Sports report says Russell Wilson's camp has grown increasingly frustrated by the Seahawks being unable to block for Russell Wilson. He's been sacked 394 times in 9 seasons, which is the most through 9 seasons since the AFL-NFL merger. Depending on who you'd like to listen to, the numbers would tell a different story. Pro Football Focus uses analytics to rank offensive lines in the NFL, and Seattle ended up number 14 of 32 teams. Despite this average to above average ranking, Russell Wilson was sacked 52 times last year, leading the league over even Carson Wentz, who literally forgot how to play football at times last year. So if the O-line is average, what's causing these sacks? Well, there are definitely instances where the O-line doesn't protect enough. On top of this, Wilson's time to throw was top 5 in the NFL last year, as the let Russ cook turned into let Russ sling it 20 yards downfield every play. There are also times when Russell Wilson just tries to get too cute and runs into the D, I know how that goes, instead of taking another path. A report from The Athletic said that there is a power and control controversy going on in Seattle currently, as the quarterback prefers to pass, which puts up his own numbers, but allows for a more explosive offense. But Pete Carroll would like to run and control the tempo. Carroll even said after their playoff loss to the Rams, he would like to get back to consistency with the run game. Soon the Seahawks will consistently be getting 3 yards a carry, and Pete Carroll will be on the sideline getting fucking amped. Shortly after the Seahawks playoff loss to the Rams, offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, who is a passing enthusiast, was fired. The Seahawks did finish the season weaker in the second half of the season, but still ended up 12-4 and finished top 10 in points scored. It is exactly because of this weak finish that reports say the Seahawks don't believe in Wilson. NFL insider Dov Kleiman says Seahawks note Wilson's inability to keep up MVP level play for an entire season, that they don't trust him as a focal point of the offense. They think Wilson can look like an MVP for 8 games, but sooner or later Chef Wilson will turn into White Castle Fry Cook Wilson, at least according to the Seahawks. After Dan Patrick's first show with Wilson, he thought there wasn't enough shit being started, so he fanned the flames which he created himself and said, a source told me that the Seahawks management is not happy with Russell Wilson and his camp for taking this to the media. You wonder if they're going to be able to coexist. The current situation is not sustainable. That's what I was told. Seattle's front office is currently taking calls for Wilson, who's definitely not looking for a trade, according to his agent. But if he did want a trade, which he doesn't, a list of teams magically appeared from Russell Wilson's same agent. Again, he doesn't want a trade, but the following teams are on the table if he did: Chicago, Las Vegas, New Orleans, and Dallas. Ironically, all of these teams have a worse offensive line ranking than Seattle does on PFF except for one, the New Orleans Saints. Although neither side has confirmed they're looking for a trade, neither the Seahawks or Russell Wilson have said they are not looking for a trade either. In fact, reports say Seahawks are listening to trade offers, but not reciprocating calls, opposed to the Houston Texans, who have thrown their phone into the Gulf of Mexico. A Seahawks letter to season ticket holders went out about the NFL season, and the letter included the Seahawks' biggest stars. These stars included DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Shane Waldron, and Andy Dickerson. So either Andy Dickerson is more important to that Seahawks team, which maybe Andy Dickerson's pretty sick, or they're not totally convinced Russell Wilson will be a Seahawk this year. NFL Network's Michael Silver has reported that there is a fixed price tag on Russell Wilson, and that includes at least 3 first-round picks. He also reported somewhere around a third of the teams in the NFL have called asking for Wilson's availability. If he is traded, there's one team that is strangely favored over all the other teams for Wilson to go to, and that's the Chicago Bears. At plus 140 odds, they're the clear favorite. In fact, the next team on the list is plus 1800. That is, Vegas thinks it's over 10 times more likely that Wilson is traded to Chicago than traded to any other team. But let's revisit Wilson's list. Dallas? Trade Dak? Maybe. Don't underestimate how smart and controlled Jerry Jones is. Chicago? Don't underestimate how desperate they are, is the common report coming out. The Bears are coming out of an on-again, off-again relationship with Mitch Trubisky and Big Dick Nick, and they're thirsty as fuck for a rebound. Big Ben, Deshaun, Darnold, Russell Wilson have all been looked at by the Chicago front office recently. Vegas. Don't underestimate how average Derek Carr is, and if John Gruden is looking to sling it, and Pete Carroll just wants to take things slow and run the ball 40 times a game, maybe if they just swap partners, this would be way better for both sides. New Orleans. Don't underestimate $70 million. The Saints are $70 million over the salary cap, the most of any NFL franchise, so there would have to be some serious gymnastics done to their money to get the deal done for New Orleans. What do these teams have in common? If we look at former offensive coordinators who are head coaches in the NFL and have made the playoffs, we get the following list of 10 coaches. Andy Reid, Mike McCarthy, Sean Payton, John Gruden, Bruce Arians, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Frank Reich, and Matt Nagy. Reich has Carson, Shanahan and McVay are both in division, so the Seahawks will likely not trade him there. LaFleur has Rodgers, Arians has Brady, and Reid has Patrick Mahomes. All 4 of the other coaches on this list made Russell Wilson's list. Mainly, he just wants an offensive-minded coach that can make the playoffs without him. Wilson does have some power past him definitely not requesting a trade. The no trade clause in his contract allows him to veto any trade to any team he would not want to go to. So if you have a defensive head coach, do not count on getting Russell Wilson. The Seahawks would have to pay $21 million in dead money against their cap if they do trade Russell Wilson this year. If I had to pay $21 million to get rid of someone, they would definitely just stay with me, so the fact that the Seahawks aren't saying no to incoming calls should reveal something. If I'm a betting man, he gets moved after next season to avoid a $21 million dead money cap hit. But what do you think? Where does Russell Wilson end up cooking next year? Let me know in the comments, and for more videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel.